Well, hello investors and traders. I'm LA Little and this is your daily NeoTA wrap. We take a look at these markets and we do it from a neoclassical perspective. Each time we're asking ourselves one question: what happened today and what does it tell us about the coming ones? I do this show 4 times a week, every Monday through Thursday. It's broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time, archived on YouTube, and it's under the channel LA Little. If you want to subscribe, just hit the subscribe button. Each time content's pushed, you'll get a notification as to that fact. As far as what happened today, we started to get the pullback. So last night we were talking about it, said that we could get the pullback. In fact, did start to see exactly that. It started over in Europe with the DAX and the CACs, both of those down slightly. You've got some weakness, it looks like, here tonight. Last night the Asia was up. The S&P, the NASDAQ, the NDX, all 1.5% lower. Same with the Dow, almost 1.25. The Russell led the pack on the way down again, 2.25. The Russell seems to be the leader on the downside anytime we go that way, and so much of that seems to be tied to oil down 6.6%. On the OIL, I'm probably going to have to start using USO or something else. If we look at West Texas Intermediate, it was down about 5.5 today. Gold up $1, and that pretty much rounds out that board. If we take a look at the actual indexes, let's go to the S&P 500 to begin with. So, if you tuned in last night, we were talking about the possibility and the probability that we're actually going to get some sort of a retrace off the little bounce. And so that retrace actually began today. It's not quite a retrace here. Let me see, 187740. Yeah, it is. Actually, you got a lower low. So you've actually got a B point. And so the B point is from here to there, right? That's the B point. C point is on the way back. Question is how far does it go? Is it here? Is it farther down? Right? That's the sort of thing you got to measure. Just assume it's somewhere in here and draw the rest of it back up. That's the ABCD structure to the top side. Problem is it could be an ABCD to the downside as well. As a matter of fact, if you look at that on a weekly basis, it could be very large. In other words, we go from here down, get a bounce, right? It needs just a little bit more to get over that low to create the B point. So actually we don't even have it here on this. Let's go back to the daily then, because we do have it on the daily. So if we pop in here, let me grab the daily chart again. If we pop back into the daily chart and we draw it in from here, it would actually be from this point back up and now back down again. So is a ABCD bullish or is it an ABCD bearish? And that's the question one has to answer. And how you answer that question really makes a huge difference. And what I mean by that is if you look at the differences in the price points to here, just assuming that it's going to pull back and go back up to here, right? Given those ABCD structures we just laid out, we're talking about 200 plus points. It's a very big deal which way it breaks, and you've got to be able to measure where that break is. And you can't know a priori exactly where it is, but you can certainly find some price points along the way here that will tell you whether you're looking at a daily chart, maybe whether you're going inside looking at, say, 30-minute charts. You can find price points here. That's what I did today. Towards the end of the day, I pointed out to the members where I thought those price points were and where they need to look to say, oh, if it gets back underneath this level, right, then more than likely it's a bearish one. Or if it holds at a certain level, then maybe that gives us a better indication it's the upside. Of course, we're looking at that. Those are projections. We're also really monitoring the actual movement of the indexes because that's where you learn the most, because it's at test that you find out what a market wants to do. That's when it gives away its clues. I pulled over here on the DAX on the daily, and if you look at the DAX, right, the DAX tries to break lower here, so you get a little ABCD structure going, and then what happens? It can't get lower. flips around, goes right back up. Right, today it pulls back, but look at how it pulled back today. If we take a look inside that, the high was here, right? You got over this point, that's where your volume was. Got the pullback, but on the pullback, volume's light compared to the prior bar, which was Friday. You get under it, back over it, a little hammer. That now looks more like an ABCD structure to the upside. And so the DAX at least is giving us a clue. Now we've had the DAX tell us fibs before, so we'll have to see if it turns out to be the case. But the DAX has given us a clue that it wants to move back up tomorrow rather than farther down. That's our best read in Europe. And so that gives us a decent read on these markets, because these markets, the US markets, seem to be tightly correlated with what's happening over in Europe. Of course, the wild card remains oil, and oil was the mover today, down fairly large. I outlined this chart this morning, gave it to the members and said, here's where I expect this thing to try to come back to. This is the key support zone. So as oil comes back in, and I had it on the NYMEX 30-minute charts on the futures, as it comes back into this particular area here, that's the key support zone. That's where it needs to hold. And tonight, it's almost there. And so we're going to find out tomorrow on the oil charts, right, what the market wants to do at these levels. And again, it's where the tests are important that we learn the most. And so as oil comes back into this key level, right, if it finds new sellers and it keeps going down, well, that's a big news story, right? That's going to tell us something much more different. It's going to attack these lows here. And then, of course, if you break those lows, there's really nothing under them again. Oil, as long as it finds a range, whether that range is 28 up to 33, whether that range is, 32 down to, 27, whatever the range is, as long as it finds a range and stays in the range, then the rest of the market can go ahead and discount it and put it aside and focus on something else. And there's definitely something else to focus on. Right now, it's been the West Texas Intermediate, but we're going to see currencies which have been on the back burner come back to the fourth, because we've got the Fed and we've got the Bank of Japan Wednesday and Thursday this week. I think those are going to be the key items this week, because if the Fed comes out and is more hawkish, then we're going to see this market attempt to rise. So far, that push up here off the Draghi bar, at least in the dollar itself, right, is still testing these tops, trying to get higher, and slowly gravitating up that way. Over in Europe, though, which is going to be the main focus when we get whatever the Fed does, that Draghi bar is still holding everything. And so the euro is holding steady, right? The dollar's creeping up again. If the Fed does not come out and say, we're definitely going to raise rates again, then I suspect that dollar is going to stay in the range. This is going to stay in the range. And then the currencies aren't going to be the main issue. What could happen, though, is, of course, the Fed could be more hawkish than most people think, which would definitely get the move going on the dollar, which would cause probably quite a bit of disruption. The other thing, of course, primarily is the Japanese yen. Now, the yen had made a huge run, right? Big spike off the lows, if you're looking at it on the daily chart, all the way up to test some prior highs. Now, if you look at it here on the weekly, you can see those highs. You got a test of it last week. Couldn't get higher. Actually, let me pull this up so you can see it better. Sorry. You got a test on it last week. Couldn't get higher and came back. Are the Japanese going to tell us that they're going to do more QE? This market seems to be expecting that. Volumes, 1.3 last week, 1.4 there. Not quite enough to knock it out, but close enough to test it again. This, to me, is probably going to be the biggest chart, because if the yen takes off, That's going to take Asia down. It's going to definitely take the Japanese market down, probably take the Asian market down. And Asia, as we already know, is weak to begin with. And finally, if we look over to gold to try to get a clue from it as to what's happening, I think you're going to get that test tomorrow. And again, the test is where we find out things. Swing point high here. You got volume on that swing point high. Can it take it out? Right now you're coming into it. You don't have volume. You hit up there with decent volume. That's why it's coming right back to try it again. If gold goes over, back under, fails, that's going to seem to suggest that the dollar is going to work higher, not lower. And therefore, the Fed is probably going to maintain that hawkish tone. So if we see that sort of a failure, I think that's going to give us a clue as to what's coming. Wednesday, Thursday, those are the primary days this week. You got Apple earnings tomorrow after the bell. That's a big number. Apple down 25% on the year. Apple, of course, a huge weighting in the NDX. And so that combo of Apple, the Fed, the Bank of Japan is going to be the key this week and is critical. Because if you look at some of these sectors and you pull them back, I'm looking at the weekly here on the financials. If you pull this back, right, the weekly, it's deep into this bar already. And finally, if you bring it to the monthly, on the monthly charts, the financials are trying to break a swing point low. If they stay on it on the end of the month, that's this month, the financials will have broken in transition trend. It's true on the industrials, it's true on the financials, and it's true on the small caps. So big week, and question is which way is it going to break? I think that question is going to be answered on Wednesday and Thursday, and we'll probably get some more clues tomorrow to tell us which it's going to be as this pullback tries to continue. That's it for tonight. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great one. Take care.